guys, it's the 8.1 intro video. You are going to choose a book. The lesson objective for this lesson, students will be able to choose a book from the list or other literary book, their book club, and make reading deadlines. So let me give you some details about how this is going to work. First of all, you get to pick your book, and I am going to give you some parameters. I want you to choose a literary book instead of just any old book, and I'll explain what that means momentarily. You will make a group with at least one other person, and you can be up to 5 people total. So one other person up to 4 other people, but everybody needs to be reading a different book. You're going to be talking about your book during 3 different book clubs. 2 are formatively assessed and 1 is summatively assessed. And then you'll be recording a recap of what your book club talked about. We also have one more summative assessment in the form of the CASE, Character Award Ceremony Extravaganza, right at the end of the school year. This is our chance to celebrate all of our hard work. And you'll have 3 things you have to do. You'll have to come as a character and accept an award. And then you'll have 2 group duties to do. One will be to make awards for other characters, and another will be to help prepare for the behind the scenes, do something in the classroom to make the classroom an award worthy setting. So that's the plan. We have 250 summative assessments ahead of us left for the rest of your English career here at the high school. All right, so some details about how I want you to choose a book. First of all, there's a book list in Schoology called the CIS Book Club book list, and those have books that you can read that we have either in the classroom library or through the Media Center. There's also a list in there that's called Book List of Award Winners, and that has all of the award winners of like the last 100 years for Pulitzer, National Book Award, Booker, and PEN/Faulkner Awards. And those are the most distinguished literary awards that are given each year to novelists. And so that's a great list to find some good books. Literary books are books that are written and read for their literary value over their mass appeal and popularity, and that's the kind of book that I want you to read for this book club. These are books that maybe you wouldn't read on your own otherwise, so they're a little more sophisticated, a little bit more literary worthy than some of the other books. If you pick a book that is not on the book lists in Schoology, not in the classroom library, then I'm going to make you do a literary book test. It also has to be at least 200 pages long. The literary book test has 4 criteria. The first is author acclaim. The second is scholarly attention. The third is popularity versus prestige. And the fourth is language and style. So the literary book test is in Schoology. This is how it looks also. And the first thing you have to do is look through those 4 criteria that I just gave you, and you want your book to score over here. In the end, your book has to score 10 points or higher. So if it hits 2 of these on the most literary end of the spectrum, then you're good to go. Or if it hits all 4 of these in the possibly literary, you're good to go, because that would be 12 points. But I'm going to make you actually figure this out and send me an email if you want a book other than the books in the classroom or on the class list. And in that email, you're just going to give me 1 sentence about each of these 4 factors, about why your book deserves to be considered a literary book, and tell me the total points it earned when doing the literary book test. Okay, as far as how you choose a group, this you get to pick. You just have to make sure your book is 2 to 5 people, and everyone's reading a different book. So write your names down in the packet and make sure you include the book everyone is reading so that you know that you can be in a book club together. As far as your book deadlines, this is going to require a little bit of math, all right? We're going to have 3 book deadlines. So the first thing is to determine how long your book is. Sometimes that's easier said than done because there's like extra stuff at the end. So you have to figure out where the actual book ends. Sometimes there aren't page numbers on the very last pages. So then you have to figure out, which page it actually is. So sometimes it's a little bit trickier than it seems. After figuring out how many pages you have, you're going to divide by 3. And that's going to tell you about how long each deadline needs to be, since we have 3 deadlines. The next thing to do is to find good places to end each reading deadline. You don't want to end right in the middle of a chapter. Instead, look for the end of the chapter, the end of a section to use for your end of the reading deadline. Check the calendar too. Maybe there's some weeks where you're going to have more time than other weeks. Like, when is prom, right? Check to see when that is and maybe give yourself a shorter deadline over that particular week. You can use your best judgment to determine your deadlines. Write them down in your packet. I'm going to get these from you for 8.1. Here's a quick example. So if I were going to read Beloved by Toni Morrison, which is the most important book of the 20th century written by an American author, in my humble opinion, I would notice that the book has 324 pages, which was kind of tricky to figure out because there were no page numbers on the last couple of pages, so I had to use my brain and count and figure all that out. But I divide by 324 and I get 108. So I know my reading deadlines are going to be about 108 pages. But when I look in the book, I notice that the first deadline, if I wanted to end on 108, it's not going to work because there's not a break at the end of a chapter. These chapters in this book, by the way, aren't numbered. You can just tell because of the spacing where the chapters are. And the next good place to stop wasn't until like page 135 or something like that. And I wouldn't want to read 135 pages for my first deadline because reading a new book is the hardest part of a book, right? Because you have to get to know the characters, the universe that's being described, the setting, all this stuff. And so I thought, well, you know what? We have the end of a section on page 100. I'm just going to make that my first deadline, knowing I'm 8 pages short of what I should be reading, and tack that on later. My second deadline is longer. It's going to be 34 pages. So that's quite a bit longer. So I have to make sure that I can handle that, but it'll work out for me. And then my third deadline is going to be a little bit shorter. All right, so you guys get to decide this. Use your book, use your brains. You can handle it. Write them down in your packet. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to read, what your deadlines are, and who's in your group. Just show me that stuff once you've got it for your 8.1 mastery check. Thanks and welcome to the book club unit.